we forget about how thick Melo was. Like, pause,
No.
but like he could just bang with people.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to another episode of the Bright Now podcast. We're recording this at 12:30 Eastern Time, Saturday, December 23rd. My name's Dash, and I'm the Josh Okogie to my Grayson Allen, my co-host TJ. And you guys might notice that, I'm not as hype at the beginning of the episodes as I usually am. And that's because it's been a cold world out here for Suns fans as of recent. Let me not get ahead of myself. TJ, what are we talking about today?
Today, we have a somber episode. Gonna walk through the Suns versus Trailblazers, absolute embarrassment. The Suns versus Kings, maybe even bigger embarrassment. And then gonna touch on something from a little bit of a theological perspective, talking about the basketball gods and how they're impacting this Suns team, what we know about them historically, how we can potentially right this ship going forward. And then finally, gonna break down the NBA script for the year so far and talk about what the biggest storylines are. So you'll have to wait and see to figure out what those biggest inputs for the as far as that script is going this year. But kicking things off, Suns versus Portland, we end up losing to them by, at one point we're up 16 in the first quarter. We're up 12 at halftime. We end up losing the game by 5. Just a common theme that we've seen from this Suns team all year is losing leads, especially to teams that on paper are just far inferior to what our roster should be capable of. They get absolutely blown out in the third quarter, 38-20. The lineup that did most of that damage to us was DeAndre Ayton. We know all about him. Anthony Simons, solid young guy, no disrespect. Jeremy Grant, Toumani Camara, and Malcolm Brogdon. That's the team that beat us by 18 points in a single quarter, with Kevin Durant playing every single minute of that quarter. So I guess starting things off there, thoughts on that third quarter collapse, thoughts on just that game as a whole. What are you feeling about the Trailblazers versus Suns?
Yeah, very disheartening. Haven't had an awesome start to the year. Haven't had a lot of great, as we touched on before, just like impact wins against good teams. And, you're supposed to take care of business as a team that's title contenders, which is the Suns, who were pretending to be at the beginning of this year. Like you said, with the whole KD playing every minute of that game, he ended up with 40 points and a plus 18 on the court. But I hate to be the turnover police. The 5 turnovers are not ideal. Again, it goes into the whole, we need a point guard situation. We had Saben Lee out there, a two-way guy, a guy that we are pretty high on, a guy that we've seen, blossom in the Arizona hemisphere. But man, it's just not a pretty sight. Booker's 26 points and 7 assists and 1 turnover. It's nice, but we can't let this fool us into thinking that we don't need a point guard, considering he shot 11 for 25 from the field. It was just very disheartening. And as you said, a guy who's not super high on DeAndre Ayton, to see him, get his buckets where he could, finishing with 16 points. Side note, did you notice in the fourth quarter when they kept trying to feed him the ball? And then he was just like, that was the closest we came to like trying to do something. But just very disheartening. That's the word that comes to mind right away. What did you think about the game as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, the Blazers are 7-20 on the season. They're 3-10 at home, including this game. So the only other teams they beat at home are Memphis before Ja's return. So a really awful Memphis team, and Utah, who we all know what Utah is at the end of the day. So that's the company we're in as far as losing to the Trailblazers on the road in Portland. So we've talked about statement wins. You mentioned it a second ago. This is like a statement loss. Like, this is a bad loss. This is something that'll really hurt. If it was like a college football playoff selection committee, this is one of those losses that really hurts. Our best win is still either a buzzer beater against the Knicks, which is kind of counteracted by the fact that we got the shit kicked out of us by them about a week ago. And then again, obviously, we've talked about the Timberwolves being on that back-to-back after Rudy Gobert gets choked out by Draymond. Like, those are our best wins on the season. Still haven't beat anybody good. We squandered a 40-point Kevin Durant game. And just the fact that he did play every minute of that third quarter is just disgusting. He's 35 years old. People talk about LeBron being 38 and doing all the things he's done. We haven't seen somebody be 35 and be as good as Kevin Durant is, to be honest with you. Like, including LeBron, all that stuff. Like, obviously, great. Not going to go down that rabbit hole of comparing those two. But for what he's performing and doing at 35 years old is absolutely incredible and damn near unprecedented. And we're just blowing it because we have nobody else on this roster that can support it or pick up the slack anywhere else.
So can we stay on that KD take? Because being someone who does work like public service, I'm a bartender, and I get to hear a lot of the takes from just like the general Suns fans. A lot of people are starting to flip on the whole Kevin Durant trade. I've always been on the side if you can get an all-time great such as Kevin Durant, do it. But man, I mean, at this moment, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and some first-round picks sound super tasty right now. With these losses with Kevin Durant, I mean, we're now a 500 team, and we're about to go up against the Mavericks, the Rockets, the Hornets, the Magic, and the Blazers again on New Year's. And I see a world where we're below 500 to start 2024, and I'm nervous about that, TJ. Yeah. I'm nervous.
No, I texted you yesterday that it's seriously time to consider the fact of us almost missing the playoffs entirely. And like, I don't care. Okay, sure, we can make the play-in. Like that, the odds to make the play-in are pretty solid. Like who would fall out is pretty reasonable to expect. But that's not a true playoff appearance. That's not guaranteed to be in the actual 1 versus 8 matchup, things like that. It does seem like going back to the Portland stats specifically. So KD with 40, Booker with 26, Grayson Allen with 11, and everyone else is under 10 points. And that's just kind of what happens when you slap a team together with 3 max guys, 3 guys that make $40 million, and then everyone else is basically making $2 million, except for like Nasir Little at 6 and Yusuf Nurkic at like 8, I want to say, or maybe it's higher than that. But when you can do that when you have health and you have unselfish guys that excel differently. But the problem is Booker, Beal, and Durant. Obviously, we haven't even seen those 3 often, but all 3 of those guys are 3-level score-first guys that are heavy on the mid-range. They all do the exact same thing, and we have no balance on the court offensively or defensively, and it just eventually, we see it happen every game. It just resorts to hero ball with Booker and Beal are probably the biggest culprits of this, but just catching the ball at the top of the wing or on the elbow or something and just standing there for 5-8 seconds before going into making a move. And maybe there's some small actions going outside. Maybe they're waiting for somebody to cut and just nobody is. But it's still it's a bad product that we put out on the floor right now.
Yeah, and to touch on what you're saying about the standing there for 10 seconds, there's a clip going around NBA Twitter of Booker just staring at, I can't remember who's guarding him, but staring at him for about 10 seconds, and it ends up with a 2-dribble, double-team, pull-up air ball. And it just kind of tells a story about the stagnation of the offense as a whole this entire year. I mean, I just don't know what fixes it. Because as you said, there's no balance. Thanos out here. There is no balance.
There's no balance.
And you know what I'm saying? So do you have any takes on, like I said, going back to it, the general not getting Kevin Durant? Or do you think, because that is the domino effect when we consider that Bradley Beal to get CP3, we kind of had to do that deal if we're going to get anybody in that sense. Do you regret it at all? Or are you going to do that trade still 10 times out of 10? How are you feeling with hindsight?
When it comes to the Kevin Durant trade, I think you have to do it. I don't think we had to do the Bradley Beal trade. I was fairly against it when the rumors started coming through. Like, we had a ton of conversations about it when it was first said that he was going to be available. The no trade clause thing helped us out a ton, only having to give up CP and Landry Shamet. So who knows who we could have aggregated with Chris Paul and somebody else to get in some more tangible pieces. I still like the Ayton trade is also still kind of skeptical on my end. Nurkic and Grayson Allen have been awesome for us. Like, I don't want to be ungrateful to what they've done for the Suns so far. But at one point, the rumor was that we were going to get Miles Turner and Buddy Hield for DeAndre Ayton. We knew the Pacers wanted him. They offered him that restricted free agency deal. So I think that's where my biggest concern comes from. I think we did have to do the Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson thing. Matt Ishbia wanted to come in and make a splashy move. Kevin said he wanted to come here, which just was awesome to feel. And I'm a Kevin Durant super fan, so I would want them to do it every time. Yeah. But in hindsight, maybe we could have just kept that core together. Because I saw Book, Bridges, and Cam Johnson as like a legit championship trio. Like, I know maybe not a lot of people think that. Maybe that's just Suns bias coming in. But you watch them on the court, and they fit together so nicely. They all did something a little bit differently, but we're really, really good defenders too.
Yeah, I hear you. And I mean, it's not like we've definitely talked about it 1,000 times over. I think I do agree it's a championship team, but at the same time, I do remember holding myself accountable. I did want that second star, and I knew CP3 is going to be too old to do that. So It's just a wonky situation as a whole.
is.
Not super excited. Last thing I wanted to touch on was that KBD was listed with a migraine that game, but this next game that we're about to get into, the Kings game, he was just a straight DNP. So do you think that Vogel is completely out on KBD, even with like Kogi being injured at the moment?
Yeah, it's very odd. That's something we've complained about all year. It's just the fickleness of those rotations where it could just be who knows who's going to get the run tonight. I haven't loved the KBD minutes. I think Metu has outplayed him, especially when you think of sliding them into that power forward spot. That's why I prefer Metu, because he does play a little bit bigger.
Metu.
And I trust his jumper a little bit, a lot more than KBD's for sure. So I don't blame him for that. It's just kind of sad when, KBD had plenty of opportunities to prove himself. So that part of it kind of sucks. But that's not even the biggest story of that Kings game. I just think we have a lot of guys that get heavy minutes for us that wouldn't play on 80% of teams in the league.
Yeah.
Especially when Nurkic is out and we have Eubanks and Azubuike, which shout out to Azubuike going in there, playing really hard. Love the way he finishes at the rim strong, but he's still just not, he's not a top 30, not a top 50 center in the league, right? That's probably being a little nice.
Yeah, you're right. And he played 22 minutes and ended up positive on the court, +1 at the end of the day. But yeah, you're exactly right. He's not going to be one of those top centers that should be playing that many minutes anyway, right?
Exactly. And so the maybe the most concerning part in the Kings game for me was our inability to capitalize on good defensive plays. Like the first one that jumped out to me was Azubuike got a great block on Malik Monk. Like he helps on the roll, he sees him get by, and it was like really great timing in like evaluating when he's going to go up for the shot, because a lot of times bigs get too aggressive and jump way too early and get called for a foul. So he gets a great block. We throw it up court to Booker, and he tries to just catches it with one hand and tries to do a scoop layup and just smokes it. And so that's one where we just need to capitalize on those sort of opportunities. Another one that came down later, Goodwin's, or I guess taking a step back, after Booker misses that layup, it's kind of an old basketball law that if a missed layup on one end turns into a layup on the other end within 8 seconds is I think what kind of the coach speak stat is. And that's exactly what happened on that play. Couple possessions later, or not a few possessions later, but later in the game, Goodwin gets a steal, immediately turns it over, losing his dribble, and that's when Monk comes down and dunks on Drew Eubanks. So it's another one of those things where we just shoot ourselves in the foot after making a good play. So that's really frustrating to watch.
Those are down and backs. If you're a high school basketball player, college or whatever, those are down and backs you're running in practice.
Exactly.
Because
get on the baseline.
As you're touching on it. Get on the goddamn baseline. I completely agree with you. Like I said, those are demoralizing at the end of the day. It's as a team getting a stop for a layup and then just or missing a layup, which is already a thing, and then allowing one. It's just demoralizing as a squad. It doesn't help a team play defense any better. And then I wanted to touch on one of my favorite players in the league that does play on the Kings. Domantas Sabonis just absolutely fucked us throughout that whole game. I think he ended up like a plus 150 out there on the court, just totally abusing anybody who was in front of him, abusing, our boy, Eubanks. And so I just don't know what to do. I think that's one of our big concerns. Being a contender was how we're going to defend someone that's at the 5 position, considering, we have Jokic or Anthony Davis that we could run into the West. And shit, if we run into the Kings, I'm a little nervous. Domantas Sabonis is out there, undersized 5, just absolutely bullying everybody on the boards, making plays happen.
Triple-double, 13 or 12 from 15 from the field, insanely efficient, 12 assists, 11 rebounds. We had no answer for him. I'm totally with you there. That's probably, as far as defensively, that's probably our biggest concern. We've talked about the points that we allow at the rim already. So, yeah, I'm totally with you there. That's just really frustrating.
Super hard watch overall. Again, I'm going to be the turnover police. I'm sorry, Kevin Durant. 7 turnovers during this game. Goes into the conversation of the point guard. And it's just him trying to win offensive possessions by himself is something that, we're used to and we're okay with, but man, when it happens over and over and over, I mean, it's hard for a 7-foot guy just to, bringing the ball up the court. I mean, he's the guy, if anybody, that can do it. But time after time after time, playing a game against a couple days ago against the Blazers, like you said, playing every single minute, it's just not going to work out at the end of the day. Very nervous in that aspect. Do you have anything else you want to touch on this Kings game? Because I was disgusted personally.
I got a couple of points. So first, shout out to Azubuike. He had a really big dunk, which turned into that Kevin
Yeah.
Durant and Devin Booker technicals. But I want to talk about that possession because of just how ugly that possession was as a whole, which turned out to be kind of positive, but a net loss because of the technicals. But we get there's a missed three that's just kind of a bricked three. We get an offensive rebound. Grayson Allen just shoots kind of an ugly putback, right? Oh, look at that fucking dude. Grayson Allen misses kind of an ugly putback attempt. Goodwin shoots maybe the worst floater I've ever seen in my life. And then Azubuike does his little post move, strong dunk. Kevin Durant comes too far out on the court, and then Booker just starts screaming at the refs about it as well. So you could see that Durant and Booker are really frustrated, especially in that instance. So I'm very concerned about that. Just overall got out executed in this game. They had 32 assists. We had 19. I think that's a big story of it. The Kings are so aesthetically pleasing to watch too. So it was such a contrast in terms of the way they move the ball. But the final part I want to leave with, so I ran these numbers today, just wanting to look at how Kevin Durant and Booker, like how much of our offensive output is really coming from them. And so far this season, they've scored 40% of all of our points. So two guys have scored 40% of all of our buckets. They shoot 5% better from the field than the rest of the team, 8% better from three, but they also have 35% of our turnovers. So we put so much on these guys, and the ball is in their two hands so much. And it just, I mean, we're scoring the ball well. They're shooting the ball fairly efficiently between the two of them. But when we can't pick up the slack in any other space and can't give them the support, like we're not going to win games. They're just going to get more frustrated, and we're just going to keep losing to mediocre to bad teams.
And to add on to that, when we've seen that traditionally in history with guys like Luka Doncic being so high usage guys, we've seen guys like James Harden being traditionally so high usage. It doesn't work. We see potentially times where during the playoffs it's just completely gassed because they use everything that they got in the tank. And these two guys, I hate to say it out loud, they're not they're not Iron Mans.
Nope.
They're not Iron Mans at the end of the day, and it makes me extremely nervous as a Suns fan. I'm not even sure what we need to do, if we need to make a move. I want some team chemistry, some consistency, but man, this is just going to cut it.
Well, we talked about prepping for this. We wanted to do a trade segment and kind of focus it on what the Suns could do, and we can't do anything. I think the name I texted you first when I was digging through, I was like, we could probably trade for Ty Washington.
Yeah.
So shout out to the Arizona kid, but like he's on a two-way deal right now. I did look at the numbers. We could theoretically get DeAnthony Melton from the Sixers, but then you look at the Sixers stats and he gets like their fifth most minutes, and it's like, why would they part ways with their backup point guard? Like, there's just no options out there. Derrick Rose came to mind. He's way too important to Memphis and kind of helping Ja out, we think. Like, theoretically kind of being that big brother type mentor. So there's no options in the trade market for us. This is our team for the rest of the season, I think. Like, unless we get a buyout or something ridiculous, I just don't see it.
Yep. So we'll see what we can do there. I did see some reports. I forgot to ask you. Have you seen any of the stuff where there's teams actually interested in Bol Bol? I'm not sure what we could get for him or what teams are actually going to offer for that, but we'll see, right?
Yeah, sure. If somebody take him, please, literally, fine, go ahead. I hate seeing the comment section just be like, oh, he's still actually better than Wemby. Just get whatever. If somebody wants him for a bag of chips, they can take him.
Fuck it. Well, yeah, the basketball gods have not been kind to the Suns because we sold our soul, and that kind of transitions us into our next segment that we'll take after the break. The basketball gods' history and what they've done to teams who have done something a little similar. Coming up next.
That brother needed help.
And we're back. I did want to touch on this. I didn't know where to throw this in necessarily because I'm not sure what the Detroit Pistons did to piss off the basketball gods. It must have been something off the court because, man, are they playing some atrocious basketball right now. I think they are on a 25-game losing streak. They have, TJ, I did hear this on the BS podcast, but they have the worst winning percentage in the league since 2009. And think about all the bad teams we've had since 2009. And the reason why I'm using that year as reference is because that's the same year that they won their last playoff series. And this was during the same era as the 76ers, who were intentionally attempting to lose games. And hear me out. On paper, I would probably say that this current Detroit Pistons team has better talent than the 2016 10-72 Sixers, better than the roster of the 2012 7-59 Bobcats. And the worst thing about it, I already brought it up, but Detroit was supposed to make some sort of attempt to win some games this year, or at least progress, right?
Yeah, at least take a step forward, and they just have absolutely not. The first thing that jumps into my head is that we all know, like, the Pistons, with all due respect, that 2004 team is probably the worst champion, at least of the last 20 years. Like, if you just put all the champions in a tournament, obviously the defense is outstanding, but maybe they sold their soul a little bit too to get that one done, and the karma's just kind of coming back due. They've just made really poor decisions. Like, they've had some bad draft luck, but they have so many guys that are like lottery picks on their roster. Like Jaden Ivey's top 10 pick, Killian Hayes top 10 pick, James Wiseman and Marvin Bagley top 2 picks, Cade number 1, Ausar top 5. Like, they're just all over the place. Like, really high draft picks, and it's supposed to be guys that with high upside, and they just haven't done a good job of, I guess, of evaluating talent. So it definitely, they seem like a big basketball gods. They seem a little bit cursed at this point. Honestly, the Suns are just lucky we don't play them anytime soon. I don't think we play them until February, but if the winless streak goes, I would put money that the Pistons will end it in against Phoenix. So I don't know when they'll get their next win. I looked at their next schedule. Like, they got some tough ones, and even
Brooklyn.
the bad teams. Exactly. All the bad teams are still better than them too. Like, you'd still take Utah over them. So I don't know about that. As far as the basketball gods go, I did do some research to try to figure out see if there's any evidence of this actually existing, and I think we got plenty of examples just anecdotally. But one thing that I found from Ken Palm, so shout out to him, all the best college basketball stats guy for sure. He had a study that he did on conference games the last like 10 years. It was like 2010 to 2020 or something, of teams that were tied at halftime and comparing how they did in the second half versus the first half shooting threes. And the teams that shot worse from the three-point line in the first half of a tied game at the half had like a 20% higher chance of winning in the second. And so the quote that he finishes it off is that if teams are shooting better from three and not taking the lead on their opponent, then the basketball gods will take notice and seek retribution. And it feels like that's exactly what is happening with the Suns right now. We sold on 2 great draft picks we made of Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson to win now with Kevin Durant. We kind of stabbed Chris Paul in the back after he totally turns the franchise around for Bradley Beal. And now they are seeking retribution, and that's how this team is going. I'm a firm believer in the basketball gods since just in my own playing career. I think LeBron and Giannis have both had quotes talking about the basketball gods and how they kind of balance things out at the end of the day. So as far as examples for what we've seen, I think the first one that jumps out is the Rockets in 2018 missing those 27 straight threes against the Warriors in that closeout game. We mentioned it before, that heliocentric offense around one guy, just ISO heavy, pick and roll, step back threes, all that stuff is just not very aesthetically pleasing, isn't really true to what the game's supposed to be with ball movement and getting teammates involved. And so that really bit him in the ass. Do you got any other examples as far as like what the basketball gods have shown to you in terms of kind of punishing teams that make short-sighted decisions?
Man, yeah. I mean, I just want kind of sticking with that whole Rocket spiel. It's crazy because, like you said, with the basketball gods, they do absolutely exist. And in that game, I distinctly remember watching that Game 7, and that game was still close with the 27 threes missed. And the Rockets were getting buckets at the rim, and they just decided to live and die by the three. 1,000%. We saw 24. It felt like PJ Tucker threes just missed. We've seen a ton of James Harden just giving up on his team, allowing defensive, poor defense as a whole on his end, just absolutely getting torched by whoever was on the switch, whether it be Clay or Curry, whoever he was just, cursed to go ahead and guard. We've seen the Clippers go ahead and do it this year, which I'm completely out on. I've said it multiple times that the Clippers are just, I just don't believe in them. We saw the Raptors. We talked about it a little bit during the pod that, they went ahead and did their thing and they got their chip and they did it the right way all the way to there. But, they're paying the price now, it seems, staying in that middle stagnant field, not getting any high draft picks.
It feels like DeMar DeRozan was just like the sacrificial lamb for them to get that championship, and then now they're just going to kind of live in mediocrity. So that
and fuck it, if I'm a Suns fan, I'll take that. I mean,
I would take it. I would take it if we could get the chip, but I just don't see it with these guys. And like you said, the Raptors had done it the right way for a long time, and then did make the one move to kind of swap their guy for an upgrade, which makes sense. But then we see it seems like that curse stuck around with Kawhi with those Clippers teams, and just can't stay healthy in the playoffs, no matter how good he's playing. He gave us a heart attack in the first round last year. So that's definitely terrifying. Another example.
Even going into the Clippers, just to stay on that real quick, even with the Clippers with that Paul George team, I mean, they gave the Suns a real scare when we advanced against them to go to the NBA Finals, because they were actually doing extremely well on the defensive end of the floor towards that fourth quarter, and that I think it was Game 6. And just clamping down on the team, but could not execute offensively, missing a ton of shots. I think they missed like 8 shots in a row towards the end of that game, but were able to get stops to keep it close the entirety of it. And so it just goes to show that, regardless, things will be balanced out at the end of the day. Did you have another one?
I think another big one was the Clippers blowing a 3-1 lead in 2015. So this is the Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan team, where Corey Brewer and Josh Smith outscore them 51-20 to finish Game 6 in that crazy comeback. And they were down 30 at one point. And Harden was on the bench for that. And that was another thing where Harden and Dwight, we know the issues that they had. We know the issues that those Clippers teams had in just terms of overall chemistry. And that stuff is very real. The spirit of basketball is a very real thing. And if guys aren't playing the right way, it just doesn't turn into results. Like if you look at the best teams, they all had a cohesiveness, an understanding of their roles. And when you don't have that, the basketball gods will punish you by making you miss 27 threes, making you lose 51-20 in the end of the stretch, turn you guys into a mediocre franchise. And overall, I mean, the Clippers are probably the biggest losers that it comes to that. Like they trade SGA and 1,000 picks for Paul George. We just talked about how that hasn't turned out right. They've been cursed forever. That almost seems like maybe the curse of being the second LA team, and maybe they just need to get the hell out of there. I'm fully of the camp that each city should get one team. I don't get why New York gets 2 of everything. I don't get why LA gets 2 of everything. It's just kind of stupid in my opinion. Like we should, there should be a team in Seattle. Nobody cares about the Clippers in LA. Let's get them the hell out of there.
I'm even okay with San Diego. Let's put them back over there. I like that vibe. I like
exactly.
San Diego Clippers.
Just switch it up at least a little bit. I just think it's ridiculous.
I agree.
So we've said it a bunch before. Even as a player, like I always firmly believed that each day you kind of get a finite number of makes in a game. Like it's kind of almost a predestined thing. It always felt like if I shot really well in warm-ups and we're shooting around and I'm just lighting it up, I would just shoot like shit in the game. Or if you're shooting bad in warm-ups, you shoot great in the game. All those kind of ins and outs in terms of just the spirit and I know aura is the big buzzword with the kids now, but like the aura of basketball and kind of respecting the game is how you can get the basketball gods on your side. And when you do something like trading your good young draft picks for the win now guy, stabbing Chris Paul in the back to get Bradley Beal, I just think the basketball gods don't like that stuff. And I do kind of, to round out this topic, I went through the last championship since like 2015 and just kind of tested it to see how these teams were really constructed. So starting with that Spurs team in 2014-15, that was just a drafted team. They brought they drafted Kawhi, drafted Parker, Ginobili, Duncan. That's kind of how they built it the right way. Then you go to the
did their research, got some real good European guys coming overseas and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Just handling their business well.
Exactly. Then you got the Warriors team in 14-15. Again, they drafted their big players. They brought in some older pieces like Iguodala, Sean Livingston, those kind of guys. But again, playing it the right way, building it the right way with their core. Again, the Raptors, we talked about them. They had built that team and just didn't have enough firepower to get past LeBron ever. They bring in Kawhi, sacrifice DeMar. We've seen the results there from then. Then we got the Bucks, who draft Giannis. Obviously that was kind of a shot in the dark at the end of the day. But then they make kind of smaller moves, bringing in Drew Holiday, bring in Chris Middleton when his stock was really down on the Pistons. Again, doing it the right way. We get another Warriors championship. Again, drafted that team. And then the Nuggets, again, draft small trades, small free agency moves, nothing crazy. So it seems like when you just sell out for the star power and to make the big 3 and to make the big splashy news, it hasn't really resulted in championships. Just look at these last 8 teams or however many years it's been, and it's just not. The evidence isn't there that that the Suns went about this the right way.
Yeah, and even if you look at teams just to even make it to the chip, I mean, we look at the Boston Celtics, they're extremely homegrown, have a bunch of guys that they've just, got through the draft. Jaylen Brown, we see even Marcus Smart got us there, Jason Tatum. If you want to go in the different direction, like we talked about the Suns earlier with Mikal Bridges, it just goes to show that it's very real and it's very nerve-wracking. I guess the closest thing you could say to, not going that full blown route is the Lakers in the 2020 bubble, but there's obviously a bunch of different
LeBron, and that's
exceptions.
just
It's
that's
LeBron
just
James.
LeBron.
But they still have those guys like Kyle Kuzma. They got the guys like that are on smaller contracts to bring in, like KCP, guys like Alex Caruso. It's just it just goes to show it takes a lot. The Miami teams, they got Jimmy Butler obviously with that acquisition, but
Yeah, that's
Bam
all built through
Adebayo,
culture.
homegrown, Tyler Hero.
All those undrafted free agents that they had. Like teams that win go about it the right way, and when you try to get, it's like when you see on TikTok, you see all the fake entrepreneurs that just have some bullshit get rich quick scheme. They're like, oh, just buy ATMs, bro, you'll be fine. Trust me, bro, ATMs. Oh, mine Ethereum, get this Dogecoin, all that bullshit that people talk about. You can't get rich quick. You can't win championships quick. It takes time. It takes effort. It takes cohesiveness, and that's the lesson that I've really learned from the Suns this year. And I hope that Ishbia learns his lesson.
Yeah, got to give yourselves opportunity to be lucky by making sure you lay those proper foundations. Anything else you want to touch on with these basketball gods? It just feels like it's real hoopers know, I feel like.
I just think we need to say our prayers. Honestly, everyone go out, get some shots up. Don't leave on a make. We just need as much good vibes going into the air as possible.
Don't leave on a miss.
Never leave on a miss. Everyone knows this. Come on now, fellas.
Don't leave on a miss.
So that's basically it. That's where I stand with the basketball gods. Hopefully we can right the ship sometime soon, but who the hell knows?
I'm gonna go outside right now at the park and do some defensive slides. Maybe help us out a little bit. Get some real hard-nosed work to get some points for the Suns.
Gonna go run some 22s.
Yeah.
See if I can get that done.
You try to go get some miking in later?
There we go. Always miking every day. That's it. Form shooting, miking, reverse miking. You gotta get yourself ready.
Kids, unironically, get your miking in. You don't want to miss those open layups.
No, build your left hand. Start brushing your teeth with your left. We know you don't have a left hand. You listening to this, right? You know who you are. Get your left hand up.
All right. Well, we're gonna wrap up this segment here of the basketball gods, and after the break, we're gonna talk about the NBA script, our new little segment we want to talk about, and we got some fun stuff coming up. NBA's in a good place as a whole, I think. Coming up next.
That brother needed help.
Get on the goddamn baseline. And we're back talking about the NBA script. And boy, oh boy, I think a lot of us forgot about how much we missed Ja Morant. Because starting off with this first game, the NBA knew exactly what the hell they were doing, setting up Ja versus Zion when they were making that schedule. And just flat out, this was an awesome game to watch, by the way. I mean,
Amazing.
Even though it started off, Pelicans were on track to just absolutely whomp them, being up 24 in that first half. Ja Morant did his best LeBron James impersonation and carried the goddamn team, shooting 50% from the field, 34 points, 6 rebounds. And I know we talked about it on the phone, TJ, but the 8 assists were just so sexy to watch. I mean, I don't know if it's just me. Maybe I've had my jaw withdrawals for too long, but I kind of forgot about how good he was as a passer. What did you see?
Yeah, he's insanely dynamic, maybe the most dynamic dude in the league. Obviously, so 27 points in the second half alone, and all those assists come in like such a good flow of the offense where he's getting the defense to collapse. He knows exactly where he's going to go with it. He doesn't jump to make decisions. He will jump and make some crazy acrobatic passes, but he always knows. He's always in control, it feels like. And he made Herb Jones look like me out there.
And like you said, to touch on what you talked about the other day, he made that decision. Like, he knows where he's going to pass before he jumps. It's not a quick decision in the air. Kind of like some of those Russell Westbrook, kick my ass, assists where he would jump up in the air and just kind of throw the ball kind of willy-nilly. It was beautiful to see. And keep on going with what you were saying.
Yeah, I just think he finishes with 34 points, and Zion finishes with 13. So these are the two guys. They're always going to be compared to each other for the rest of eternity, basically.
And RJ.
Shout out to RJ. I tried to find some fake trades with him, but who the hell wants him at the end of the day? Whatever. So I do think we really need to remember who the Grizzlies are. The rest of this way, they're going to be a tough out. He completely changes the entire motion of that team. So just love watching Ja Morant play. I mean, we've talked about it before, how we thought the 25-game suspension was just unfair. He didn't break any actual laws. Like, sure, you shouldn't flash a gun on Instagram Live. It's stupid. It's very stupid.
Is this basketball gods talk?
This kind of is basketball gods talk, where maybe the basketball gods knew, hey, the gun had nothing to do with ball. He's going to come back and he's going to hoop. He paid his dues. I think he's amazing. So this made me want to propose this question to you, and I think this is really going to stump you a little bit. Can you rank these 3 young point guards? They're all 22 to 23, all in the same age range.
I already know.
Halliburton, Ja, Tyrese Maxey. Go.
Ooh. All right. Bias is showing here with my second team being the Pacers. I'm still going with Tyrese Halliburton. I just love the passing. I can't, but definitely Ja Morant is right there at the heels. And if he can continue to bring this team all the way up to I'm not even going to set the expectations that high. The 25 games is crucial, and we saw how much they suffered. If he can get them in the play-in, I'm taking him over Tyrese Halliburton. But go ahead and show me. They're currently on track to win 100% of the rest of their games, being 2-0, small sample size. But man, I really enjoyed what I'm seeing from him, and that's no disrespect to Tyrese Maxey whatsoever. Amazing player, but Ja Morant, man, oh man, and he comes out to continue on to this. Hitting some game winners. If you can hit a few more of those, Tyrese Halliburton, I'm sorry, you're moving to that 2 position. I mean, that game winner right there at the end of the game had me jumping out of my seat, and I am not a Grizzlies fan.
He doesn't settle for a jumper like so many other guys would have. He goes right into Herb Jones' chest. Most people would have thought, oh, that length, we don't want to get messy with him inside. No, takes it right into him, finishes over the top. Absolutely fearless. He had another amazing finish where he skies up for the dunk and then switches it into a layup. He's just amazing with the ball in his hands. He's probably top 3 fastest guys in the league with the ball in his hands, right up there with the De'Aaron Foxes of the world. And it's just we really need to remember who the Grizzlies are now, because last season them being they were the 2 seed, I believe. And obviously missing the 25 games just dug them a huge hole. But I would not be hitting the panic button if I'm the Grizzlies. I'm super happy. Hey, let's get back into the play-in. We weren't going to win a championship this year anyway, if everybody did play all season. So I think they still have plenty of time. And in the next 5 to 7 years, it's Ja Morant's world, and we're just living in it.
So excited, and to talk about the team as a whole, as you were just touching on. I mean, we had that interesting little tidbit at the end of the game where Ja actually told Coach Taylor Jenkins that he thought that JJJ had a mismatch down there in the post and wanted him to just go straight at their big. I don't know if it was Valanciunas. I feel like he might not have been there, but Desmond Bane, he stepped up and said, fuck no, Ja, you're getting the ball at the end of this game. And it worked. I just love to hear little stories about that. Mm-hmm. Just goes ahead and shows that this is a cohesive team, an unselfish team. And like you said, I'm not hitting any kind of panic button. If I'm a Grizzlies fan, I'm ecstatic. Our boy Chris Vernon from the Ringers definitely has to be hyped,
going
right?
nuts. He has to be absolutely thrilled. And I mean, and then they go to the next game and they beat the Pacers too. So with Ja again, I think he finished with 20 points in that one.
8 assists. I'm just still so blown away. I just keep forgetting how good of a passer he is. He had another 8 assists in that game.
And fairly efficient. He was 7 for 16 in that next game. So 43% from the field, not amazing, but not terrible, especially when it's his second game of the year. So shout out to Ja Morant. Always going to be rooting for that guy. Hopefully he can just keep his head on straight and not get himself in any more trouble, because that's the only thing that's standing in his way.
Yep. I love your quote. It's Ja Morant's world, and we're just living in it right here. Also, I just wanted to add on, even though in that loss, Tyrese Halliburton had 14 assists. It's not his fault. Okay, guys, he can do no wrong. No, I'm joking. But yeah, moving on from that, our second half of this NBA script pod, we want to talk about the big Rookie of the Year race, which is Chet Holmgren versus Victor Wembanyama. And just right off the bat, obviously, we need to acknowledge OKC is a much better team than this San Antonio Spurs team. One of my favorite watches, just as a whole, of any team in the league at the moment. But when we look at Chet right here, he's got 17 points, about 8 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 2.7 blocks. Still shooting extremely efficiently, not the 50-40-90 club that he initially was, that people were going to say, hey,
pretty damn close. Pretty damn close.
Yeah, 53% from the field, 38% from 3, and 87.5% from the free throw line. Then we look over at Victor Wembanyama. We see he's at 18.5, beating him there. More rebounds than Chet with 10.7, more assists slightly with 2.8. more steals a game with 1.4, which is crazy, and then more blocks. More blocks than 2.7 with 3 a game. Wemby having 4.4 stocks is absolutely mind-boggling. Not as efficient, of course, with 43% from the field, 27% from 3, and then 77 from the line. Man, so who's currently, let's not beat around the bush, TJ, who is your current rookie of the year?
If I had to make a prediction, I would say that it's probably going to go to Chet. I think
Ooh.
people recognize how important he is to the Thunder and how good they are. He, like you said, Wemby has all of the just like the pure counting stats. He's putting up those better numbers, but that team is just dog shit, especially when you start looking at the advanced stuff. Like, I don't think it's Wemby's fault that his advanced numbers are low. It's literally just the people around him. Like, if you look at box plus minus and things like that, where Chet is just destroying him in those more advanced numbers, like Vorp is another one. So I do think that it would go to Chet at this point, because I think people do respect that efficiency and want that rookie. Like, if there's a rookie of the year on a winner, it's really important. But Wemby is so far and away the best player on that team, and he's missing out on probably 8 points a game for just them not passing the ball to him, cutting to the rim. Like,
Can we go into that? Can you talk about that, please?
crazy.
That shit is annoying.
The Spurs are a top 3 team in assists, and they leave 4 out on the table every game by just not throwing it to Wemby at the rim. It seems like his teammates are just more concerned with getting theirs rather than trying to help him build. And we mentioned it before. We thought it was nice how Popovich was kind of not really putting any chains on Wemby and just letting him do what he wanted to do and kind of using this as an evaluation year. But he's really good, and they need a point guard that can just get him the ball. Like, imagine him with just like a Trae Young type, just throwing lobs at the rim all the time. It would be damn near unstoppable.
Yeah, I heard something interesting. I'm not sure if Detroit would want to go in this direction, but San Antonio has 1 million picks. Would you like to see a Cade and Wemby pairing?
I think it's too early for the Pistons to give up on Cade. I think that's kind of like that's a move that just kind of curses you further, as like kind of relating to the last segment. But I do think that they need to bring somebody in eventually. And so I don't know if there's any, looking at the draft prospects for this year, maybe there's some point guard that kind of rises up the ranks as the seasons go along. But right now, I would give it to Chet. All due respect to Wemby, he is probably the more talented player still. But I do really like the production of him being on a winner. And if the Thunder are going to finish as like I think they're the 2 seed now. If they're going to finish as like a top 3 seed, like I don't know how it doesn't go to him.
And it's just so crazy to see the Oklahoma City Thunder having another amazing young core. I mean, obviously we look back at the 2012 team with Harden and Westbrook and KD, and then we have something that's looking extremely similar. And like I said, obviously those teams amazing, went to the finals and everything, but I see the timeline where this team is just flat out better, deeper. Really love a lot of the guys that they have on that team. To kind of move away from the Chet and OKC side, going back to the Spurs, are you completely out on the Jeremy Sohan experiment?
It's just not working. I really liked the effort and the idea of it all to try to put these guys in unique positions to help their development. But when it is just hurting Wemby that bad, and he's just not a good enough ball handler, not a good enough initiator, I do think he could do great stuff in like the short roll or catching it in the half court and being a playmaker. But in terms of being the guy that just gets you into your offense every time, I don't think Sohan is that. I think he's still a solid pairing for Wemby. I don't mind the experimentation, especially with this roster. Like, nobody looking at this roster thought they'd be amounting to anything anyway. So, maybe they get another top 3 pick this year and then can find that guy to really pair with him. But I would like to see them maybe start putting a more higher emphasis on just feeding Wemby, because he's their best chance to win.
I hear you. And last question I want to propose to you. Do you think that in 20 years, who will have more finals MVPs, Wemby or Chet?
Just for the fact that Chet is playing with SGA, who's better than him, and I don't know. I don't want to say J-Dub is better than him either, but like he's really fucking
damn good
too.
Pretty damn good.
So Wemby is going to be the best player on the Spurs for as long as he's on the team. So I would probably give that edge to Wemby as far as looking out for the career. But if we're talking about this year, I mean, it's one of the best rookie races that we've had in a while.
I 100% agree. Man, all right. Well, I think that wraps up the pod for us. Did you have anything else you want to add on for those 2 big dogs?
Let's just enjoy it, fellas. We always spend a lot of time pitting the guys against each other and dragging one guy down to build somebody up. Just they're both, the Thunder as a whole are one of the best teams to watch in just terms of like viewing experience. The Spurs a little bit opposite of that, but you might see something amazing every time you turn Wemby on. So just keep watching, fellas.
Enjoy basketball. Well, that's going to wrap it up for episode, what is this, 12? Episode 12 of the Bright Now podcast?
Woo!
Woo!
We did it. Another
All right,
perfect
guys.
episode.
Another perfect, phenomenal episode. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for watching. And, my advice is always, have a phenomenal rest of your day.